Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tony's Comic Spotlight. In this weekly episodic series, I spotlight some of the best comics put to print. This week's episode, we celebrate the first appearances of Jonah Jameson and the Chameleon by shining the spotlight on the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1 from 1963. If you are enjoying the content, please feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos. Feel free to leave a comment as well. I hope you enjoy the videos. And now, on to our featured story. Spider-Man, written by Stan Lee with art by Steve Ditko. With the Parker household desperate for money following the death of Uncle Ben, Peter Parker decides to continue in show business as Spider-Man. However, not only does he find it impossible to cash his paycheck, which is made out to Spider-Man, but the irrational editorials by Jonah Jameson in the Daily Bugle effectively quelch his career. Besides denouncing Spider-Man as a publicity-seeking phony, Jonah Jameson also publishes articles lauding his son, John Jameson, a courageous astronaut about to be launched into orbit in a space capsule. Jonah Jameson calls his son a real hero. The day of the launch finds Peter Parker at the launch site as an observer. The rocket takes off successfully, but a guidance system error causes it to go wildly off course and re-enter the atmosphere. Spider-Man appears at the launch site and offers to replace the defective 24-3B guidance unit in the plunging capsule with a spare. Because there is no way for the military to get to the capsule in time, they allow Spider-Man to try. Spider-Man commandeers an aircraft and pilot, and together they fly toward the space capsule's re-entry point. Although the capsule is falling fast, Spider-Man manages to get hold of it with his webbing and climbs aboard. He quickly replaces the faulty guidance unit. As a result, John Jameson regains control of the capsule, gets it properly oriented, and opens its parachute. To the joy of all concerned, the astronaut is saved. Thinking that Spider-Man has at last proven himself, Peter Parker is shocked when he reads Jonah Jameson's editorial in the next edition of the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man is accused of deliberately sabotaging the space capsule and staging the rescue as a publicity stunt. With public opinion turning against Spider-Man with each new editorial in the Daily Bugle, Peter Parker's position is as hopeless as ever. The end. Spider-Man in Spider-Man vs. the Chameleon. Still looking for a way to use his powers to make money, Spider-Man decides to try and join the Fantastic Four. He enters the Baxter Building, escapes a plexiglass cage, and battles the four heroes. After explaining his intentions, he learns that the Fantastic Four are a non-profit organization and earns no salaries. He leaves disappointed, vowing to make the group look like pikers. Meanwhile, the Chameleon is using his multi-pocket disguise vest to infiltrate a defense installation in the Lark Building at the edge of New York City. Later that night, while mulling over the defense plans he has stolen, he hears about Spider-Man's visit to the Fantastic Four's headquarters. He deduces that Spider-Man has no legitimate way to earn a living and must be short of money. He once more infiltrates the defense installation and, disguised as Spider-Man, steals the remainder of the missile defense plans. Spider-Man, who had been contacted with a phony job offer by the Chameleon on a special frequency that only his spider sense can pick up, arrives at the defense installation just after the Chameleon's departure. The security guards try to capture him, thinking he has stolen the plans. Evading capture, Spider-Man uses his elastic webbing to sling himself out over the harbor, then spins a web parachute to land safely. He grabs a boat and follows the Chameleon's helicopter to a waiting Soviet submarine. He quickly gains control of the helicopter, and he and the Chameleon return to the Lark Building. The Chameleon disguises himself as one of the security guards to avoid arrest, but after a brief battle, he is captured. Unfortunately, during the battle, the guards believe that Spider-Man is the Chameleon in disguise, forcing Spider-Man to flee. He departs rueful of the way things never seem to turn out right for him. The end. The Chameleon is the first ever Spider-Man supervillain. Created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, the Chameleon made his Marvel Comics debut in the very first issue of The Amazing Spider-Man in December 1962. The landmark issue sees Peter Parker struggling to make a living off his arachnid-like abilities. Attempt to join the Fantastic Four only to discover that the superhero family does not receive any monetary compensation for their vigilantism. Meanwhile, the Chameleon manages to infiltrate a defense installation at New York City's Lark Building and does so by posing as the web slinger. The story even ends after Chameleon gets away by pretending to be a security guard, with the authorities mistaking Spidey for the criminal. Chameleon is a master of disguise. Spider-Man is not the only Marvel Comics character whom the Chameleon has assumed the identity of throughout his criminal career. As you probably could infer from his name, posing as other people is kind of his thing, and he's only gotten better at it since his debut, when his primary method of disguise was altering his appearance with skilled makeup effects and very convincing masks to wear over his featureless white default mask. The Chameleon would later develop a belt buckle that projects the holographic image of whatever person he chooses around so he can quickly switch between different disguises. Later, he would surgically and mutagenically modify his skin to be able to physically alter his appearance at will and wore clothing made of memory fabric that could change along with it. Some later stories have also interpreted the chameleon's penchant for disguise as a way to cope with his own insecurities, which are likely rooted in his faulty family history. The chameleon is Kraven the Hunter's half brother. One of the most interesting facts about Kraven the Hunter, who is also a Russian native whose real name is Sergei Kravenov, is that he and the chameleon share the same father, the Nikolai Kravenov. In fact, the half siblings were even both featured in 1964's The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, number 15, which saw Kraven make his own Marvel Comics debut. In this issue, Dmitry Smirnikov enlists the aid of Sergei to help him defeat Spider-Man, which would end up becoming the catalyst of the violent big game hunter's ongoing obsession with making Peter Parker's alter ego his ultimate trophy. The story also provides some further insight into the brothers' childhood, which was not the most favorable upbringing to say the least. Young Sergei would actually take out his own frustrations over his alcoholic, abusive father on his older brother Dmitri. However, the man who would become the chameleon and Craven's occasional partner in crime would manage to keep some peace between the two by entertaining his younger brother with his impressive talent of mimicry. Chameleon's change in Craven's last hunt. Chameleon's physical changes came after a result of the death of Kraven the Hunter. After Kraven died in Kraven's last hunt, Chameleon vowed revenge on Spider-Man and underwent experiments to become more powerful. His ability to disguise himself as others improved significantly, but his odds against Spider-Man didn't. Though he got his licks in, he failed again to defeat Spider-Man, making him even more angry and desperate than he was before. Learning Spider-Man's secret identity. One of Chameleon's most insidious plots against Spider-Man involved creating android duplicates of Peter Parker's parents. This was all in the aim of confirming that Peter Parker was Spider, something that Chameleon had already suspected. The shock of Peter's parents returning led to a violent fight between the two, though Mary Jane Watson delivered the knockout blow with a baseball bat. But it also caused a mental breakdown for Chameleon. He went to the Ravencroft Asylum for a time, but would eventually escape. J. Jonah Jameson created some supervillains. J. Jonah Jameson tried everything he could to turn the public against Spider-Man. He wrote editorials about Spider-Man being a menace, slanted articles to make it look like Spider-Man was responsible for things he was to stop, and turned many police officers against Spider-Man. When that didn't stop Spider-Man, Jameson almost became a supervillain. He helped finance and oversaw the process that turned Matt Gargan into the Scorpion. He helped create the Spider Slayers. For a time, Jameson was as bad as any villain Spider-Man had ever faced. J. Jonah Jameson hired villains to kill Spider-Man. When Jameson wasn't smearing Spider-Man's name or creating new villains to attack him, he was hiring supervillains himself to try to either take out Spider-Man or frame the wall crawler for doing something. He had hired Matt Gargan before he transformed into the supervillain the Scorpion. He hired Mysterio to go after Spider-Man, something that almost backfired on the Jameson. Jameson worked with some of Spider-Man's biggest villains just to fulfill his vendetta against the web slinger. J. Jonah Jameson looked at Peter Parker like a son. While Jameson hated Spider-Man with all his heart and soul, he had a great relationship with Peter Parker. There were moments where the two clashed, but most of the time J. Jonah Jameson looked at Peter who worked for him since he was in high school, almost like a son. Jameson paid for Peter's wedding to Mary Jane Watson, and he even let everyone know about it. He was always there to help when Aunt May needed something, and he did everything he could to help Peter, never knowing that he was also the man who he most hated. Jonah Jameson lost his newspaper. Jameson might have used his platform to smear Spider-Man's name for years, but he also had great reporters who were fantastic investigative journalists. That made a lot of enemies. One of them ensured that Jameson lost his newspaper. Hobgoblin knew about Jameson helping create Scorpion. Hobgoblin blackmailed Jameson, but in a case of Jameson showing journalistic integrity, he admitted to it and stepped down as the editor, giving it to Joe Robertson. Jameson remained publisher, but he eventually lost his paper completely when his wife sold controlling shares of the Daily Bugle. J. Jonah Jameson was the mayor of New York City. Jameson lost the Daily Bugle, but he gained something that gave him even more power. Jameson ran for and became mayor of New York City. In one of his worst moments as the mayor, Jameson created what he called the Anti-Spider Squad to hunt down and capture Spider-Man, even though he was a hero. He abused his power as the mayor and drained the city's budget in his vendetta to bring down Spider-Man. He almost destroyed New York City thanks to focusing more on Spider-Man than the Goblin Nation event, and he eventually had to resign in disgrace. I want to take a minute and thank everyone for watching this video as we shine the spotlight on Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1, featuring the first appearances of the Chameleon and J. Jonah Jameson. If you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe and consider ringing the bell for future notifications. And then next time, we're going to shine the spotlight on Spawn number 9, featuring the first appearances of Angela, Medieval Spawn, and Cagliostro. So until next time, everyone, thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for supporting the channel. And until next time, everyone, be safe, take care, and God bless. See you.